Hands up, don't move!
Officer, please, I belong here. You're making a serious mistake.
Dispatch, I've got a potential intruder attempting access. Send backup now.
Is he arresting
Step
him?
toward me. Keep your hands where I can see them.
If you put those on me, you're gonna regret this.
You don't even know what
Hours before the confrontation, Michael Donovan, 46 years old, soft-spoken, stood in a small conference room on the 3rd floor of City Hall, finishing what had become his favorite part of the job, listening. As the first black mayor in Brookside City's history, he made it a point to meet with community members late into the evening, long after most officials had gone home. That night's meeting had run nearly 2 hours over schedule, but Michael did not mind. A single mother had shared concerns about housing, an elderly veteran struggled with medical access, and a group of teenagers presented a proposal for safer crosswalks. Michael stayed until every voice was heard. When the building finally emptied, he slipped on his long charcoal coat, chewed a piece of peppermint gum, his nightly ritual, and sent a quick goodnight text to his daughter, Jenna, heading home. "Love you," she replied with a heart emoji and a reminder to please sleep more. Michael smiled. He knew she worried about him, but he also knew Brookside needed a mayor who did not rush home when there was work left undone. He stepped out into the night. The city plaza outside City Hall was quiet at this hour, just a few dim streetlights humming against a soft drizzle that coated the sidewalks. The sound of distant traffic mixed with the rhythm of rain tapping gently on his umbrella. He inhaled deeply, letting the cold air clear his thoughts. These late-night walks were his moment of peace, the only time the weight of leadership felt a little lighter. Instead of taking the main road home, Michael chose a familiar shortcut, a narrow walkway behind the Brookside Government Annex, a building he often visited during daytime meetings. He had walked this path dozens of times. The drizzle made the pavement glisten, reflecting faint halos of yellow light. He was not in a hurry. His mind drifted toward upcoming city reforms and the morning's council session. His pace was slow, deliberate, thoughtful, but just as he rounded the back corner of the annex, another presence entered his world, sharp, impatient, and storming with unresolved anger. Officer Ryan Mercer, already frustrated from a long shift and a heated argument over the radio, spotted a lone figure near the side entrance. Michael did not see him at first, but Mercer saw him, and in an instant, the peace of the mayor's quiet walk shattered into something far more dangerous. Michael had barely taken 10 steps along the back walkway when a harsh beam of white light cut through the rain and landed directly on his face. The sudden brightness forced him to squint, and before he could say a word, a voice snapped through the air like a whip. "Hey you, stop right there." Officer Ryan Mercer moved toward him with fast, heavy steps, one hand already resting on the grip of his holstered gun. The rain made his uniform shine in patches, and his jaw was clenched so tight the muscles twitched along his cheek. This was not the tone of an officer asking questions. This was a man assuming answers. Michael stopped immediately, hands visible. His voice stayed low. "Good evening, officer. Is something wrong?" Mercer did not respond to the greeting. He circled slightly, the flashlight beam crawling across Michael's coat, shoes, even his hands, as if looking for something that was not there. "What are you doing back here?" Mercer demanded. "This is restricted property." Michael kept his tone calm. "I am heading home. I had a late meeting in City Hall. I do not move." Mercer cut him off sharply. The harshness stung more than the rain hitting Michael's skin. Michael took a slow breath, fighting the rising knot in his chest. He had dealt with impatient officers before, but something in Mercer's voice felt different, like the man was looking for a fight he thought he had already won. "Officer," Michael said softly, "I work in this building during the day. I am not trespassing." Mercer stepped closer. "You work here, at this hour?" The sarcasm dripped heavier than the rain. Michael reached slowly into his coat. "I can show you my ID, hands out." Mercer barked, flashlight jerking upward. "Do not reach for anything." The metallic click of the flashlight's adjustment echoed sharply off the wet walls. Michael froze, his palms opened again. "I am just trying to cooperate," he said. Before Mercer could respond, another patrol car rolled up behind them, tires hissing on wet pavement. The second officer, Blake Turner, stepped out and immediately mirrored Mercer's suspicion. "What have we got?" Turner asked. Mercer did not look away from Michael. "Possible trespasser trying to access the annex." Turner's eyes swept Michael quickly, judgment forming before thought. "Yeah," he muttered. "Figures." Then, under his breath, but loud enough to be heard, "You people always think you can be anywhere." Across the street, under the awning of a convenience store, a man waiting for an Uber glanced over. His eyebrows shot up. He pulled out his phone and quietly began recording. Michael swallowed hard. "Officers, I do not want any trouble." Turner stepped forward. "Then stop talking and answer the questions." Why are you back here? What are you trying to access? Michael tried again, voice steady despite the pounding in his chest. I work in City Hall. I take this walkway often at night. If you will let me reach into my pocket slowly, I can show you my identification, Mercer scoffed. You know how many times I have heard that? The rain intensified, masking the sound of a car slowing down behind them to watch. Drops bounced off the pavement like tiny flickers of light. Michael felt a surge of frustration, but he forced it down. Stay calm. You always stay calm. That was the promise he had made to himself long before becoming mayor control. The moment, do not let anger guide it. Officer, he said quietly, you are making a mistake. Turner stepped closer. Do not tell us what we are doing wrong. Kneel. Michael blinked. What? Kneel. Turner repeated, hand drifting toward his taser. Now the command hit him like a physical blow. He had not expected this. Not so fast. Not for walking home. I am not resisting, Michael said, but I am not kneeling on the ground for doing nothing wrong. Mercer's patience snapped. He grabbed Michael's arm roughly, twisting it slightly. Michael winced not from pain, but from the humiliation and disbelief of how quickly things were spiraling. A car slowed nearby. A teenager leaned out the window recording, whispering, Yo, what is going on? The side door of the government annex opened. A janitor, Mr. Alvarez, a middle-aged man who cleaned the building at night, stepped out pushing a mop bucket. He recognized Michael's face instantly. He had seen him countless times. Sir, he called out cautiously. Is everything all right? Mercer snapped his head toward him. This does not concern you. Get back inside. But I think that is inside, Mercer shouted. Alvarez hesitated, torn, but fear won. He slipped back in, door closing behind him with a heavy thud. Michael's heart ached not just at being manhandled, but at seeing a man who recognized him get silenced like that. Part of him wanted to shout his title, to yell, I am the mayor of this city, to end the chaos instantly. But another part, the wiser part, whispered caution. Claiming authority could escalate things. It could sound confrontational, and these were officers already building a story in their heads. He felt trapped inside two battles, the external one, staying physically safe, the internal one, staying emotionally steady. Mercer tightened his grip on Michael's arm. Looks like you're avoiding questions. That is suspicious behavior. What would you have done in his place? The narrator's voice asks the audience softly. Kneel, fight, explain, pray they finally listen. Turner stepped around Michael, checking the annex door. This door is locked, he said to Mercer. He might have been trying to get in. Michael shook his head. That is not true. I was not. Mercer cut him off, raising his radio. Dispatch, we have a possible attempted break-in at the government annex. Suspect uncooperative. Uncooperative. That word hit Michael harder than the rain. He had done everything calmly, respectfully, yet Mercer said it with such certainty the universe felt tilted. A small crowd had now gathered at the plaza entrance, umbrellas, hoodies pulled tight, people whispering, what is happening? Phones pointing, recording, always recording. Have you ever seen someone get profiled like this? The narrator asks, would you know what to say? What to do? Michael lifted his chin slightly, his voice soft, almost pleading now. Officer, please, let me show you my ID. No, Mercer said coldly. You are going to do exactly what I say. He stepped behind Michael. Turner moved to his side. Two officers, one unarmed man, and a crowd holding its breath. Mercer reached for the cuffs. The metallic crack of them opening echoed sharply in the cold night air. You are under arrest for trespassing on federal property. Rain fell heavier. The crowd went silent. Michael Donovan closed his eyes not from fear, but from the weight of a moment he knew was no longer just about him. Tonight would change everything. The rain had turned to a steady curtain now, soft but relentless, blurring the edges of the plaza lights as if the city itself could not bear to watch what was happening. Michael Donovan stood still, hands half raised, while Officer Mercer tightened his grip on the open cuffs. The cold metal brushed Michael's wrist. Then a voice cut sharply through the air. Wait, hey, what are you doing? That is the mayor. The words did not come from the crowd. They came from a young woman sprinting across the plaza, coat flapping behind her, phone gripped tightly in her hand. She stepped under a street lamp, her face fully visible. Noaisha Bennett, 23 years old, a City Hall policy intern who had stayed late preparing paperwork for the next day's council meeting. Mercer did not even look at her. Ma'am, step back. This is a police matter. But she did not step back. She came closer, breath fast, rain streaking her hair. Officer, listen to me. That is Mayor Michael Donovan. He works here. He is this city. Turner scoffed. Nice try. Everybody is a mayor when they are in trouble. The crowd murmured. A few people lowered their umbrellas to get a clearer view. The man across the street zoomed in his phone camera. Cars slowed. Tension thickened like fog. Aisha's voice shook with outrage. Check his face. You have seen him on the news, on the posters, on the website, everywhere. But Mercer was locked into a narrative he had already convinced himself was true. He raised a hand dismissively. Ma'am, for the last time, step back or you will be detained for interfering. Aisha looked at Michael. Their eyes met briefly, hers frantic, his calm but deeply tired. That tiny moment sent a spark through her. She lifted her phone higher and began recording deliberately, framing Mercer, Turner, and Michael in one shot. Her voice was loud, steady, and meant for an audience far bigger than the plaza. This is happening right now behind the government annex. Officers Mercer and Turner are detaining Mayor Donovan, claiming he is trespassing. Turner stiffened. Turn that off. No, she said. A single word, but it hit harder than anyone expected. Mercer stepped toward her. You are obstructing police work, and you are arresting the mayor. She fired back. The crowd erupted in whispers, people pushing closer under the shelter of the awning. Phones rose like a row of glowing witnesses. Then came the micro twist. A teenager in a red hoodie shouted from the sidewalk, Yo, she is right. That is him. That is the new mayor. Look at this. He held out his phone, showing Michael's campaign photo, the same calm eyes, the same charcoal coat. The crowd surged with electricity. Someone yelled, You are arresting your own mayor. Someone else, Are you serious? Mercer finally hesitated, just for a breath, just enough for doubt to flicker across his face. Michael seized the moment not with authority, but with dignity. Officer, he said quietly, you are making a grave mistake. Please verify my identity before this escalates further. But instead of listening, Mercer's pride flared. Hard blinding, his jaw tightened. He pressed the radio again. Dispatch, we have escalating interference at the annex. Request additional units. The words echoed across the plaza like gunshots of ego. Aisha's phone dinged, then dinged again, notifications exploding. She glanced down. The video was already going viral. Hundreds of shares in minutes. Comments pouring in, no way, this cannot be real. That is him. That is the mayor. Power shifted like a sudden gust of wind. People stepped off sidewalks. A handful of employees from City Hall leaving from the late-night cleaning shift hurried over, recognizing the man in cuffs. Wait, that is Mr. Donovan. He just left a meeting upstairs. Officer, please. Turner's eyes darted nervously. What the hell is going on? Mercer's confidence wavered. Just a crack, but pride pushed him forward. He still tried to access a restricted door. Intent is still suspicious. Aisha stepped closer, holding her phone up inches from Mercer's face. Intent, she repeated, trembling with fury. He was walking home, and then headlights swung into the plaza. Not one car, 3 city-issued black SUV. Doors flew open. The city manager, Police Captain Harris, and 2 senior officials stepped out. Alerted by the rapidly spreading video and frantic calls from staff who had seen Aisha's livestream, the crowd parted instinctively. Captain Harris approached, eyes scanning the scene, scanning the cuffs, scanning Michael's face. He froze. Dear God, he whispered. Mayor Donovan. Mercer's hand slipped slightly on the cuffs. Turner swallowed hard. The captain's face turned red, not with rain or cold, but with shock, anger, humiliation. Officers, he said in a trembling voice, step away from him. But the damage had already been done. The crowd's cameras captured everything: rain, fear, arrogance, truth rising like a storm. The moment the whole city would talk about before morning. The moment everything changed. Captain Harris stood frozen under the falling rain, staring at the scene he could barely comprehend. His own officers gripping the wrists of the man who ran the city they were sworn to protect. The cuffs dangled from Officer Mercer's hand, half open, one metal loop touching the mayor's skin. The captain's voice cracked as he finally spoke. Release him, immediately. Mercer hesitated, jaw locked, pride wrestling with fear. Turner looked like someone had pulled the ground out from under him. Aisha kept recording. The crowd leaned in closer, the silence explosive. Michael Donovan did not move. He simply lowered his arms slowly, with a dignity that somehow made the officers look smaller, pettier, and more unprepared for the reality that had crashed over them. Harris stepped forward and unlocked the cuff himself with unsteady fingers. The click felt like a thunderclap. Mr. Mayor, Harris whispered, I am so deeply sorry. Michael did not answer immediately. He stared at the rain-soaked pavement, gathering breath, gathering control, gathering the strength it took to stay calm in a moment designed to break your composure. Mercer stammered, WT. That is the mayor. This guy, A wave of disgust rippled through the crowd. A teenager shouted, "Yeah, that guy. The one you just profiled. Someone else, you did not even check his ID." A woman yelled, "He was walking home. You treated him like a criminal." Mercer took a step back, eyes darting between the cameras, the captain, the mayor, and the growing sea of witnesses. Then he made the mistake of speaking. He did not identify himself. Anyone could lie. And he was nearer restricted. Michael finally looked up, eyes steady and painfully calm. "I tried," he said softly. 3 times. Turner swallowed hard. Mercer's face drained of color. "I offered to show identification. You refused." Michael's voice did not shake. It did not rise. It did not seek revenge. It simply revealed the truth. Harris closed his eyes, ashamed. "Officers, you ignored protocol. You failed to verify. You made a false report. And you used excessive force on an unarmed cooperative citizen. The next words cut deeper than any punishment. And you did it to your own mayor." Aisha's phone buzzed again, her livestream numbers skyrocketing. Comments exploding across the screen. "This is insane. Fire them. How does this happen in 2025? He handled it better than I would have." Turner stepped forward, voice trembling. "Sir, we thought." Michael stopped him with a look not angry, but deeply disappointed. "You did not think," he said softly. "You assumed." The rain grew louder, as if the city wanted to drown out the shame. Harris turned to Mercer, voice hardening. "You racially profiled a man who did nothing wrong. You escalated without cause. You radioed a false narrative to dispatch." Mercer's voice cracked. "Captain, please, no," Harris said sharply, pointing to the cuffs. "You were about to arrest the mayor of this city on federal charges. Do you understand what you have done?" Mercer looked at the ground, defeated. Turner rubbed his face, whispering, "God, we are screwed." The air pulsed with humiliation. The crowd recorded why. Even the rain felt like a judgment. Harris turned back to Michael. "Sir, would you like to file a complaint?" Michael took a long breath. A long, painful breath. He looked around at the cameras, the witnesses, the officers, the fear, the disbelief, everything blending into a moment he never wanted but would never forget. "I do not want a complaint," he said quietly. "I want accountability." Those words landed like a hammer. A murmur rolled through the crowd. Harris nodded slowly, eyes shining with regret. "You will have it, sir." A reporter's voice rose from the back suddenly, startling everyone. "Mayor Donovan, can you tell us what happened here tonight?" Michael did not answer. He just looked at her, the same tired, wounded expression of a man forced to prove his innocence in a place he was supposed to lead. The truth was not just revealed, it was recorded, witnessed, viral, and unstoppable. And this moment, this exact frame in time would be replayed in classrooms, newsrooms, and living rooms before morning. The lie had collapsed. Now it was time for justice to rise. The plaza did not feel like a plaza anymore. It felt like a stage where the whole city had been forced to witness something raw, painful, and unforgettable. Rain-soaked citizens stood shoulder to shoulder, the flashing lights painting their faces in streaks of red and blue. And there, in the center of it all, stood Michael Donovan, drenched, humiliated, but unbroken. He did not shout. He did not push back. His dignity remained intact in a moment designed to tear it away. Officer Mercer and Officer Turner were led back toward their patrol car, not as protectors of the law but as officers now under investigation. Captain Harris took control with a voice that wavered between fury and shame as he called internal affairs. The command was short and sharp: immediate suspension pending review. Whatever arguments Mercer wanted to make died on his tongue the second Harris lifted a hand to silence him. Turner did not even try to speak. His posture said everything, fear sinking into his bones. Phones stayed raised. People whispered in disbelief. Aisha lowered her livestream, her hands trembling, realizing her footage had already reached tens of thousands. She approached Michael with tears threatening to spill. "Sir, I am so sorry." Michael shook his head gently. "You did the right thing." The rain might as well have been applause, because by the time dawn approached, the world outside Brookside had begun paying attention. News vans crowded the street before the sun rose. Local anchors stood under umbrellas broadcasting live updates, while national outlets picked up the story before coffee shops even opened. Headlines appeared everywhere: mayor wrongfully detained by police, racial profiling caught on livestream, officers suspend mayor by mistake. Clips of the cuffs brushing Michael's wrist looped endlessly on social media, sparking outrage and disbelief. People commented, "If this is how they treat the mayor, imagine everyone else," and he stayed calm. That saved his life. The next morning, City Hall was packed with reporters for an emergency press conference. Michael stepped up to the podium wearing the same coat he had worn during the incident. He did not hide the exhaustion etched into his face. He wanted the city to see the human side, not just the title. Last night, he began, I was detained and nearly arrested by officers from our own department. Reporters leaned forward, pens scratched, cameras clicked. I cooperated. I explained myself. I asked to show identification, but I was not given the chance. The room shifted. He continued calmly. This is not only about me. This is about every person who has been judged before they were heard. Every individual treated as a threat before being treated as a human being. His voice stayed steady as he announced immediate suspensions, a request for independent review, and a full reform plan with mandatory anti-bias training. This is not revenge, he said softly. This is reform, the city responded. Within hours, citizens gathered outside holding signs that read, "We stand with Mayor Donovan and accountability matters." Church leaders offered statements. Students wrote letters. Local business owners posted their support. For the first time in a long time, Brookside felt united not out of anger alone, but out of a shared desire to build something better. Internal affairs worked quickly. The evidence was overwhelming. Refusal to verify ID, false dispatch claims, unnecessary force, clear bias, failure to follow protocol. Within a week, the decision came down. Both officers were fired. No gentle resignation, no quiet transfer. Fired. Mercer appealed. Denied. Turner requested a hearing. Denied. The community watched with relief, not celebration. Justice did not feel triumphant. It felt necessary. Late one night, long after the noise faded, Michael sat alone in his office overlooking the quiet city. Papers were scattered across his desk, policies, proposals, handwritten notes from citizens he had never met. He texted his daughter, "Long day. Proud of the city today." She replied instantly, "I am proud of you." He closed his eyes for a moment, letting those words settle deeper than any headline. He never wanted to be a symbol, but the moment had chosen him. Not for glory, not for power, but for truth. 3 weeks later, a new law passed unanimously, a mandatory verification protocol, independent oversight for detentions, body camera requirements, and updated de-escalation training. It became known unofficially as the Donovan Protocol, a policy that would protect people for years to come. Justice had been served, but more importantly, injustice had been prevented. And in a world that often asks for strength without offering mercy, Michael Donovan gave his city something rare: accountability with grace. What happened in Brookside did not become a story because the mayor was involved. It became a story because it revealed something deeper, something many people live with silently. A single moment of bias, a single assumption, a single decision made in the dark without listening, without pausing, without seeing the human being standing right in front of you. That is all it took for an innocent man to be treated like a threat on the streets of his own city. But something else happened that night too. The truth did not stay hidden. People watched, people recorded, people spoke up. And in the middle of the chaos, a calm voice refused to break. A man who had every reason to shout chose instead to stand tall, proving that dignity can be louder than anger, and grace can be stronger than fear. Justice was not just a verdict or a firing. It was a shift, small, fragile, but real. A reminder that accountability is possible, and that one moment of exposure can change an entire system if enough people refuse to look away. And now, the question moves from Brookside to you. Have you ever witnessed something that did not feel right? Something that made you pause and wonder if someone was being judged unfairly? Do you believe the officers deserved the consequences they faced? If this had happened in your city, how would you want your leaders and your community to respond? Your voice matters more than you think. Where are you watching from tonight? If this story moved you, if it made you think, if it made you feel, subscribe, share, and help keep stories like this alive. Because sometimes the only thing standing between injustice and accountability is someone who refuses to stay silent.